This is the CreaseCast.
This game was so bad that, yeah, it's 10:15, and I'm just gonna crack open one of these. What is that? That's a nitro cold brew. This is... They should sponsor us at this point. President's Choice. President's Choice, get in our DMs. This is...
Come on, boys.
I'm drinking this at way too late.
Yeah, you're fucking insane.
Because this team, like, I need it right now. I just need it. Like, this is my version of I need a drink, even though it's a Tuesday night. This is my version of that.
I get it. Like, man.
Ooh, let's go.
All right. Fuck.
This is the show. Welcome to the show, everybody. How's it going?
All we do is just crush cold brews and talk about a dog shit hockey team for an hour and a half.
There are worse things to do, like what
the show with all the variety.
Yeah, like there's worse things to do. You could be Tommy Kippis, who's just destroying his body at this point.
Poor body.
I literally watch those videos and I'm just like, oh my god, I really hope you've got good health insurance. You poor hero. You poor hero. We're gonna need to like GoFundMe a stomach pump at the end of the year.
In like 10 years, when like he's finally dead because of like all the things he's put into his body, because the Canucks just like suck so much and they can't seem to string together like playoff success. God, they're gonna donate his body to medical science, and they're gonna call whatever it was that was keeping him together for that long, they're gonna call it the Kippis effect.
I don't want to think about that. Oh my god.
These are the times we're in though, where the poor boy is doing everything he can to will this team to win, and they, for whatever fucking reason, man, just can't do it. They generate a 3-goal lead in the first period against Mike Smith on 9 shots, and then they give up 4 straight, and you can't even blame goaltending.
No.
Like, this is where we're at, folks, where the intros for our episodes are just bleak and miserable, because this is what the Vancouver Canucks do to us. They give us nothing to work with. Well, sorry, that's a lie. They give us things to work with.
They give us plenty to work with.
But it's not really fun to talk about how sad and shitty things are. We want to talk about the good times. We want to cover a good hockey team. And unfortunately, the Vancouver Canucks as of late have been just awful to watch. Just an awful hockey team to watch.
They're entertaining. Give them that.
They're for like the wrong reasons.
Oh yes,
sometimes the right reasons. Or sorry, they're entertaining for the right reasons in the first period, and then the game continues, and then they're entertaining for all the wrong reasons.
Yes.
And then everything's just really tough to watch. And tonight's game against the Oilers, which we are doing our second post-mortem recap, was more of the same. A team that kind of looked like they were about to kick all the bad juju to the side, and they were going to just steamroll a Mike Smith-led Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid hadn't showed up in the first period whatsoever. And then...
everybody started tweeting about it and being like, he's not here. It's like, what are you doing? I know that he's in the game and he's not reading Twitter right now.
It's funny,
but he can tell. That's the thing they don't actually tell you about generational talented players, is that they actually have it built into their head that when people are tweeting things about them, they just know. Like, they know in the back of their heads. That's like a thing. That's like a proven fact. I think John Chayka did a study on brains about it. But
with all his draft prospects.
Yes, exactly. And if the minute you start saying, Connor McDavid, he's looked quiet, that is exactly the time that Connor McDavid is going to show up. Yeah. And at the same time, the Canucks didn't do themselves any favors, because he had the game-tying goal, and they left him wide open on the penalty kill.
It might as well have been an empty net at the end of the game. It was just so open.
The one player you should absolutely have
Yeah.
one eye on. You just let walk right to the as close to the net as he can possibly get and just rip one. Because of course they did. I think we're seeing the divide right now between you and me as how Canuck games affect us differently. Because right now Cody is very much in the I am so done. I just want to get this shit over with and go to sleep. Whereas I'm in the I am energized.
I'm in the mode.
You're in apathetic mode. Like you're not mad.
Well,
you're just disappointed.
You just crushed a cold brew. That also helps. You just
that-
crushed cold brew.
It hasn't kicked in
on
yet,
the other
though.
hand, as he chugs the rest of it.
Oh yeah.
I, on the other hand, have had so many years and decades of cynicism and misery in my life that it's hard for me to like man, after that first period, like the cynical side of me was just like, they're gonna lose. They show DJ Baroness after the first intermission. That's a bad sign. That's how they lost last game. They showed DJ Baroness, and then sure enough, they lose in an embarrassing fashion. They fucking do it again, and sure enough, 4 fucking straight goals. Or sorry, I guess technically 3 straight goals in the third period. And it's just like, man, I'm so tired of watching a team just suck shit. Like, they had such an opportunity to build off of that playoff series and really just like kind of straighten things out with their team, their roster decisions. And it's just, they like deliberately like shot themselves in both feet and were like, we're not going to keep this valuable bottom pairing defenseman who like can step up to your top pair in a pinch because he's too small. We're not going to keep this top 6 forward because we'd rather overpay Jace Howerluck and Jake Virtanen. Like, why were these decisions made, and why can't the people of Vancouver have nice things? It's tough, man. You'll get here one day, but so long as you keep crushing cold brew and just keeping that chipper attitude you have, like, I'm glad that we do this podcast, because I think if I did this with anyone else, I'd probably just like spiral into my own misery and then implode on myself and cease to exist.
Oh yeah, it's the only reason he hasn't mutinied yet and just like booted me off in favor of like somebody else.
This is true. This is very true. I think I think it gives the show a bit of a like odd couple thing where like one guy's like kind of optimistic. Well, we're optimistic in different ways, but when it comes to like the live reaction, like one's a definite fatalist and the other one's kind of like, well, it's kind of funny, which is like,
yeah. I am very much the person who does not, who instead of like trying to deal with grief the normal way that everybody else does, I'm the guy who just laughs and goes like, oh, we're all in hell now. So that's the way I deal with everything. It's just kind of, you don't have to take it this way. I just go, I put a smile on, I try and laugh about it. I try not to let it ruin my day as much as I possibly can, which is very hard sometimes. Like tonight, where you go from, is it though? It's not the healthiest thing to do. You got to actually be able to, deal with grief the proper way sometimes, I've seen Inside Out. I've seen how that works. Like,
one of my favorite pieces of commentary on a DVD, which I own many of. You can see them in the background right there, because I'm ancient and collecting DVDs used to be a thing I'd do. And one of my favorite bits of commentary came from the show Community with the creator Dan Harmon of the show we were just talking about, who created Rick and Morty. And he said,
"Oh yeah, they didn't hear that part. I don't think. I think I hit record.
I
think I hit record, but okay,
that's all good." But he has this great bit where he's like, a lot of comedy comes from people who are seemingly normal on the surface, but are always on the cusp of having one teeny tiny thing cause them to snap, and that leads to very funny comedic situations. And that's what the Vancouver Canucks are doing to people like yourself, and have already done to people like me, where they've already caused that snap or are going to cause that snap to happen. It's very funny, and eventually you become to deal with it, and you kind of have this like fatalist, cynical outlook on the team and its direction, and it makes it kind of like okay to, grit your teeth and deal with. But man, getting to that snapping point is a tough road. And I mean, we can get into the infinity
Yeah.
blocker.
Yes. I will say I've had those moments before. Like I've definitely snapped on the team before, like on multiple occasions. The three that really stick out for me. One, I've mentioned this one, I'm pretty sure, on the show before, which was the and actually somebody put it on Twitter recently, like mentioned it on Twitter. The Canucks Islanders game from 2014 where they had a 3-0 lead.
They lose 7
And they
something?
They let in 7 goals in the
In a
third
single
period.
Yeah.
I snapped that day. I was very much questioning. I was like, that was the one day in my entire life where I was like, you know what? I live in California, like an hour away from the Sharks games. Why am I not just cheering for them instead? Like, why did I not just go there?
You made a good call based on that Erik Karlsson contract.
Yeah. I mean, I like Erik Karlsson. He's a nice guy. That contract is, again, it's not on him to not take the money.
No.
That was the one game. Obviously, I very much stuck with the Canucks and always would have. Was always gonna come back there, but that was how mad I was. Yeah. And then the other two were like the day the Canucks signed Beagle and Roussel and Schaller and all those guys. I was not happy. Yeah. And the Myers contract. And very fittingly, Tyler Myers, taking a penalty late in this game.
God, 4 minutes left in the game, and he takes like the dumbest penalty. It's like
a completely unnecessary penalty.
Dom Lashizian on Twitter tweeted out like 10-20 minutes before we started recording. Just a reminder, 3 years left on that deal at $6 million per year, and it's just like.
Could have had Jake Gardner.
God, man.
Could have had Jake Gardner.
You didn't even need...
Yeah, you didn't even need to.
You can get Tyler Myers at anything less than $4 million. They were just competing with themselves. For whatever reason, Jim must overpay for guys in free agency. It's like a rite of passage where he feels the need to add the extra year or add the extra million to a deal because I guess that's the way he's done it for so long or seen it done in other organizations that he just needs to keep the trend alive. It makes no sense. And it's just like death by 1,000 cuts, as we've talked about like a dozen times. Like that Myers deal, if you got him $2.5 million cheaper, you're suddenly in a much better position to retain Stetcher, retain Toffoli, like actually build your team. Instead, you have these giant albatross contracts and you can't do anything with them.
Yeah. You're
just like preventing yourself from improving, which makes no sense to me. That we'll deal with it eventually mentality. It's just like constantly like rearing its ugly head for the Canucks this season, where you're just like, look what they could have done with that cap space if they hadn't signed X player.
Right. It's not so much that they're actively pulling the team back so much as it is they're like, if the Canucks were a car, they're not driving backwards. What's happening is with every bad contract they add, they're, instead of driving forward, they're hitting the brakes is what they're doing. They're basically making the wall like that as far as you can, that distance as far as you can go, shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And that's why they've gotten to this point tonight. Where they are, they're second to last in a division that includes a lot of not good hockey teams. Toronto. It's basically Toronto and and just a bunch of garbage.
At first it seemed like it was Toronto and Montreal versus the division, but now it kind of seems like Montreal's really hit a wall, and it's now Toronto and then 6 other teams that have no idea what their identity is, what they're capable of, and what their general direction is going to be for the rest of this season. Yeah, it's a complete clusterfuck. It's like straight up, it makes no sense. But before we get into the other teams in the league, let's get into the infinity blocker. I don't know who you thought was good in tonight's game, but maybe we can kind of, I don't know, go like their last game. end
Yeah.
tonight's game against Edmonton to try and, I don't know, get an average.
Yeah, because you know what? Like again, we haven't recorded since they played a game against the Jets as well, which they they also blew in the third
Yes.
period. Lost an OT in that one at least. Got a point, but
Moral victories, baby.
I think there is. But I mean, this week I don't have to give it to Demko this time around, not because he wasn't good or anything, but because there was actually a player that stood out, and that was Pettersson. Like he had a rough go especially in the first game. He was just post, just kept hitting the post. But at the same time he also had the one goal where it was the no look between the legs shot that beat Connor Hellebuck. Gorgeous goal. Unbelievable. Really looked like the Canucks were well on their way at that point.
Yeah.
And then in the third period, they're down. At this point, they've given up the lead. They're down 3-2, and they kept feeding Pettersson the puck. Post, hit Connor Hellebuck in the mask, take it straight off.
Legitimately tried to take off his head and kill him. It was very, very aggressive.
Yeah.
Yes,
very aggressive, and then finally he gets it to go. He gets it. He gets his goal. He gets the tying goal, and he earned it. And he played well. He's played well over the last couple games. It is the fact that they lost is not on his shoulders. I mean, it's a little bit on everyone's, especially this one. This game is especially on everyone's shoulders. But he played well despite that. He's played quite well despite all that. He had the goal today. Am I wrong? He had a goal. He had a goal today.
a goal and an assist, I believe.
Goal and an assist, yeah. I'm sorry, the games are now blending in my head together.
That is the problem with like reviewing or trying to recap games or like 2 games at a time, because you're like, what happened again? Especially, like we said, I think we said this in the last episode. It's tough to review 2 games against 2 different opponents, especially when the results are like identical.
Yes, that's the weird part. The last 3 games in a row have all been the same.
Just get a lead, blow it late, maybe tie it up and force extra time, and then blow it there too. And they just all seem so monotonous and identical that it's really hard to discern what happens in which. I was about to say for my Infinity Blocker pick, I was going to pick Niels Hoglander for not backing down from Derek Forbort trying to, murder him with cross checks, and I was like, wait,
that happened. Talk murder in this episode.
Not last game, 2 games ago.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to go with tonight's game. I'm gonna have to piggyback on yours. It's very unoriginal, but for my money's worth, Pettersson looked really fucking good, even though Miller was throwing the puck away over and over. Late in the game when they're trying to tie it up, Miller lost possession in the offensive zone, basically threw his stick down, didn't kick up his feet again, just gave up on the play while Besser, and Hughes were actively trying to regain possession in the offensive zone. Very frustrating to watch him and Besser basically try and do the work of 3 people between them. It's tough to watch him hit the post as many times as he does too. Our editor at Vancouver is awesome. Daniel Wagner had an amazing piece about how many posts and crossbars that Pettersson's been hitting.
Yeah.
How it's like gonna break records, because the latest one was Stamkos's 23 posts in like a regular season, and he's like going to crush that stat in like a shortened 56 game season. Like he's already there basically.
Oh my god.
Just the margins for error are so narrow with that guy, and he's just like annihilating pretty much everything but the net.
Yeah. I mean, I'll take that. I'll say this, I'll take him hitting a bunch of posts over him just missing the net completely. I mean, it counts the same. Like, they both count for the same thing. But, I don't know. There is something a little bit more like, at least he's come, like, at least it's somewhat close to being on net, right? Well, I get that it doesn't count as a shot on goal, but...
Could you imagine, like, if Pettersson had the same kind of puck luck that, like, Adam Gaudette's having right now? where he's like throwing everything but the kitchen sink on goalies and can't get a bounce to save his life, and everything is getting stopped, and his rebounds are like getting stopped too. Like he's just not getting any of the bounces he needs right now. And it's,
he's been playing quite hard. It's too bad that he's not getting
the on ice results are just not there, unfortunately, which is too bad, because like for someone like him who is trying like his heart out to make it happen. And then you see like players like Brandon Sutter or Bo Horvat just like cash in on like the greasiest and shittiest goals with no effort whatsoever. You just know Gaudette's on the side of the bench like, come on, I got to work 6 times as hard to even get to a chance like that. And these guys just walk on the ice and it just works out. Come on.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It's tough, and it's especially tough because it's not even like the Canucks are bad in the sense of where they're just getting ran out of the building the whole night. Like, you see what they're capable of in those in that first period. You saw exactly what kind of a team they can be when they're on top of their game. They scored 3 unanswered. They looked confident. They were dominating in the offensive zone for long stretches of time. And they got a lot of goals just by working hard or setting up something smart. Like Tyler Myers had a goal tonight, which is really weird. But it was a good setup. It was a good setup. Yeah. He just ripped it. He didn't take too much time with it to like set anything up. He just teed it up, put it in the back of the net. It's a nice goal. Bo Horvat had the first goal, which really, really set the tone for what you thought was going to be a nice night for the Canucks bounce wise. Where just throws it from the boards and it goes in off Mike Smith on the first shot of the game between his legs and his leg and in.
It's amazing.
Absolutely lucky shot, but hey, you take what you can get, especially the way this game turned out.
For sure, like, man, they'll take it. They'll take what they can get, but they just can't. Like, they need to be able to build off of that, and so far they've not.
What's happening here is that they're doing well. They get up to they play the game that they want to for that first 20 minutes or whatever, or how much time, until the first goal comes in. They get the first goal against. And then immediately just the house of cards just tumbles. They just completely lose all semblance of any sort of like structure or confidence. This is a problem this Oilers team that they're playing against has been a victim of for a long time. Like, if anyone knows about that, it's Edmonton, it's Buffalo, it's the Coyotes for a while. Like, there's a lot of teams that have gone through that very similar runs where they can do, no matter how well they do or start a game, the minute something goes wrong, the bottom just falls out. And that's where the Canucks are at right now. And they're very much, they're in a way they're their own worst enemy here. Because they clearly can play. Like, they can clearly handle the Oilers for at least a period of time. And then the second the going gets tough, they completely lose any sort of faith they have in their system or themselves. And I know we've talked about how good a coach we think Travis Green can be. Yeah. But that is a little bit on coaching. There is a little bit of what are you doing to keep this team confident? Like, how has it gotten this bad that the second there's any sort of of problems going, of any small problem, it just balloons into something so much worse?
Yeah, I agree. At the same time, I'm hesitant to place any onus on the coaching because he's been given such a dog shit lineup to work with.
Right. I am in no way saying this is all on Travis Green. I'm just saying
I know what you mean. Small... when it comes to the motivation side of it, you have Bo Horvat in tonight's post game Zoom, basically pissed off and frustrated with all the talk of moral victories and crap like that, and it's okay, what's the coach doing? Prior to next game to try and reel things back and be okay, you guys are very good. You just need to trust the process and be a lot tighter, like as the games progress in the third period. Like, I don't know why we're getting away from our game as games progress along. Like, we shouldn't be a 1-period team. We've proven in the past we're a 3-period team. And just because we lost Markstrom shouldn't mean like we're complete ass.
Yeah, I do, because I wonder what the message is, like, especially after that second period, which in my opinion was the worst of the three. Was like the worst of, like, the third period they got scored on 3 times, but I think they were worse in the second period. They just didn't get scored on. They just didn't get scored on that period.
The bounces were worse in the third period.
The bounces, the puck luck went bad for them in that period. The second period, there were massive stretches of time where they were just hemmed in their zone for upwards. I think at one point they were in their zone for like 2 minutes, like, and not on a power play.
Pretty bad shift at one point where it was like, I think Hoglander was like caught on the ice for like a minute 30 or something like that.
Right. Roussel gave the puck up and got super lucky that McDavid hit the crossbar. Yeah. There were multiple chances that the Oilers almost scored, where it looked like they might have put something in the back, but they luckily just hit the crossbar. In the same, they had the Pettersson luck going for them, where they were just hitting iron. And that was the worst of the 2 periods. And I wonder, when you get back into the locker room after that period, what is the message from the coaches? Are they coming in going like, you're playing like ass, this whole thing is garbage, you guys are playing terribly, you need to pick it up? Or are they going, hey, that was a bad period, let's pick it up? Like, because not that you can necessarily have to like baby players, like at pro hockey players, but there is something to the sense of sometimes you need a little positive reinforcement. And I don't know what's going on back there. And I do wonder if there's like, what kind of a message are you doing in this kind of a slump? Are you maybe exacerbating the problem by being too hard on a bad period? Or are you giving that positive of, hey, that sucked, but hey, we still got a lead, let's go into the next period and finish it off, kind of thing.
Right. Like, it's tough. It's probably tough for them too, because I'm sure they all check the scorecards. They all see like, oh, we're second last in the standings right now, in like a team that's like a bunch of 20-year-olds in Ottawa are like getting like pretty impressive victories over a team that absolutely clowned us in their series. Like, they're smart people relatively. They're aware of when they're slumping, when they're playing poorly, and when they're playing well. And like you said, after that second period, when they're basically just getting caved in their own zone, like, I'm sure that plays into it, where they're like, hey, bounces can only go our way for so long. And then they give up a goal in like the first like 5 minutes of the third period. And you can just kind of see them deflate, and it just kind of gets worse and worse. And you're like, at one point, does Travis Green need to start utilizing timeouts and just call it and be like, okay, like, snap into it? Because I don't think he's called a single
that's right.
timeout after goals. Like,
he hasn't done that. Really last year
he's done it. And like, I think he was criticized last year in the playoffs when I think it was like the Blues or Vegas or whatever scored 2 back-to-back goals in like a 40-second period. And he was criticized for not calling a timeout at the time, just to try and get him to settle down. And here we are in the middle of this season, and he hasn't called any kind of goals when it kind of seems like the game is going to be slipping, or when like you can kind of tell, which is weird because
he used to do it all the time.
Yeah,
he used to do it regularly, and it worked. And it worked a lot of the time. Like, I remember specific games where he would call a timeout after they've given up the lead or something, or they gave up 2 quick ones and they're within a goal or something.
Yeah,
he'd call the timeout, and almost every single time they'd come back within like a minute or 2 and put a puck in the net and put up a goal. Like, and I will say this as well, like, because again, I don't want to blame Travis Green solely for what's going on here, because that's clearly not a sole coaching problem. I'll say that to make it clear, this is also on the players. Like, it's on the players to keep a good mentality during the tough times. Like, what is leadership doing? What are the players who don't necessarily have a captaincy even on, or an A on? What are they doing to rally each other when the games are getting bad? Are they moping, or are they actually going, hey, we can do this, sort of thing? And we've talked about this on the show before, and I know I definitely have. which is that when the Canucks were playing, one of the things that I think really got the Canucks through the playoffs as far as they did was they looked like they were having fun. They were having a good time. They were playing for each other, and they were having a damn good time doing it. Yeah. And I know a lot has changed from that team to now, but I'm not seeing the same level of we're enjoying what we're doing right now. I'm seeing a lot of there's nowhere I'd want to be. I don't want to be here right now, sort of thing.
Yeah, like you can, like as we said in the third period, after they gave up the game tying goal, it was just like this blatant teeming with frustration kind of vibe you were getting from JT Miller again, where I don't know how many times the broadcast called it out when they're like, "Oh, JT Miller, he's jawing and he's going back to the bench frustrated," and you're like, "Okay, well." Instead of being frustrated, like, why isn't the coach calling a timeout and trying to like reel these guys back into it and being like, okay, like you're better than this. You got some shitty bounces. You can easily score goals again. It's just Mike Smith. He scored 3 goals on 9 shots, and sure, there were some fortunate bounces, but like you can beat this goaltender. You don't need to be this frustrated. You guys are completely capable of beating this team. And that just doesn't seem to be happening. It seems like second like the wheels start coming off, it's just like they either completely fall off and the wagon falls off the cliff, or they don't at all. Like there's no pushback, and you really have to wonder is if getting rid of players like Stetcher and Markstrom and Tanev really fucked up the vibe of this locker room, where no one, or there's like a sense of trust that is now lost in that locker room, where they can't trust each other to pull it together for each other.
Yeah. And it's gotten to the point now as well where as much as we can talk about Markstrom and Stetcher and all that stuff, at some point you gotta get over it a little bit as a player, right? Sure. Like as much as I love those guys and I hated to see them leave, and I know the players did. Yeah. At some point, you have to let it go.
Kind of need to grow up and get over it.
You cannot turn back time. You can't turn back time to fix it. As much as we do like handing out the infinity blocker on this show, we don't actually have it. We don't have the time stone. We can't shift it back to when Troy Stetcher and Jacob Markstrom were wearing Canucks colors. You can't do that. And Tyler Toffoli. So you have to find a way. You have to find a way. And right now, this team's not doing it. And it almost seems like I don't want to say it's not that they're not trying, because they are trying. But there is effort. It's just... Yeah.
But the second things start not going their way, you can kind of see that effort level dissipate a bit.
You can see the skepticism. You can see all of the negativity flood into their heads a little bit. For sure. And it's costing them points. It's costing them any shot at this division, at getting into the playoffs, which frankly, they're bad. But again, this division is so bad, you're not out of it. Like, you're not really out of it. They could very easily go on a very tiny run and somehow wind up in 4th. Because this division makes no sense outside of the Leafs are good.
Man, all right. Well, one of the things we're done with this game is it was tough to watch, and I feel bad for the people that PVR'd it and are coming home right now to try and watch it before they go to bed. We want to do something a little fun, and so I updated our season predictions that we did at the start of the season, or prior to the start of the season, and I wanted to share some of those numbers because they're pretty grim, but they're comical because I remember how we picked numbers and stats that we thought were kind of underselling the player's ability, and we were trying to remain as optimistic and positive as possible with both the over underline and just our general thoughts and how the season was going to progress.
I know I'm right on one of those. I know I'm right on at least two.
So yes, I'll get into we're both right and wrong on one, so it's actually tie game right now, technically.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So just for the first one right off the bat. So they just played game 23 on the 23rd of February, which I just realized. That's kind of weird.
That is interesting.
Yeah,
That is
so
that's cool.
We can write an article about that if they want. That's free content.
Yeah, we should also say we were looking at this before the show. Yeah, this was game 23.
Yeah.
This season's 56 games long.
Yeah.
By Saturday the 6th, March the 6th, which is I believe just over 2 weeks from now, I think. Like a little over 2 weeks.
It's like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days away.
Yeah. They played Toronto. Yeah, on that day they played Toronto.
Yeah.
In their 28th game of the season. That's the halfway point. We are going to be halfway through the season in 2.5 weeks, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah. They need to kind of shit or get off the pot on what they're going to do. Are they going to be sellers or buyers? And I don't think they have the cap to be buyers, so they need to start figuring out who's on this team moving forward and who can they recoup the most assets out of.
Oh yeah, well, we will definitely have that conversation after we get into the season
predictions. But yeah, so this is almost like sad to look at some of our predictions. So
oh no,
we tried to pick the over under on Elias Pettersson's goals for the season, and we picked it at 25, which we figured was a decent, like, you know, a point every second game or goal every second game. He is currently at 7, and we picked the over on 25, which means he'd have to score so much. He'd have to basically go.
He needs 5 goals in the next 5 games to get back on par here.
Yeah, I mean, it's knowing him, he can
honestly, yeah, it's not undoable.
It's not like impossible, but he has to go on an absolute tear basically to make it.
It's not been those posts have to start disappearing a little bit. Nets have to start getting a little bigger.
The next one is actually kind of positive. Quinn Hughes at 40 assists. He's at 19 right now.
Hey, good for Quinn.
You know, pretty
good. His defensive game has not been good. It has been very suspect. Suspect and charged, I guess, like charged with crimes.
It has not been great.
No.
So I don't want to go over all of them because some of them are.
Yeah, let's not. That would take hours.
It would take forever, but.
We don't need
one of the funny ones.
The
we both picked the over on Jake Virtanen to get 15 goals or more. He's at 1.
Oh no!
So we're both.
Oh my god! Did we really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I'd pick the under. Oh my god!
I know. So Tyler Myers, this is my first point on the board.
Oh yeah, this is the one I definitely lost on.
There is no way he isn't getting more than 40 penalty minutes this season. He's already at 35.
What happened? He was actually, like, it's so weird because, and we talked about this at the time, that was last season actually legitimately disciplined in terms of penalties. I think he had 10 penalty minutes all year last year.
And then he went to playoffs and he got 17 in like
and then he
games.
turned into, and then he evolved into Tyler Miners.
Yeah.
And then this season he's evolved in, again, our Pokemon has evolved into a Tyler Majors. So... Yes. It's so weird. I thought I was actually making a safe bet there, but nope, I have vastly underestimated his abilities to take bad penalties. Oh my god.
Okay, the next one that really sucks.
You are in that one.
Nate Schmid, we both picked the over on him earning 30 points. He's at 4.
Yeah,
that sucks.
He's got really good
solid underlying metrics, but the offensive game just hasn't come around with his team yet. Not at all.
A lot of that is due to the fact that he's gotten just stuck with rotten partners at this point in the year. Like he's had to do a lot more defensive work, and he's had some bad luck too.
Yeah.
But again, as we've said, on a healthy Canucks blue line, he's playing with Hughes. Like, he's absolutely playing full-time with Quinn Hughes. And that's a good pairing.
That would be
But they just can't do that. They just cannot do that because of how weak... They are too weak in those back two pairings to let them play together for long stretches of time. So you had to... And so you have to let him... So that's kind of how he's really struggled. I will say this. He has, 2 own goals? Which, if this were soccer, would count.
Yeah.
So, or they have a statistic for that. They actually
Yeah.
keep track of own goals. I wish
Which
they
be
did
its
that.
own OG stat or whatever. it
I
is.
wish they did that in hockey. I wish they kept
should.
track of own goals. That would be
would
real
just-
fun.
They would just bog it down in the nuance, like, well, technically, he knocked the puck into the other guy's stick, so it really is his. You know what I mean?
If you're the last person to touch the puck and you're not
Yeah.
the goalie, that's an own goal. That should count. That should count.
Okay, so then just a couple more. Jordy Ben, we both picked the under on him getting 5 points this season. He's got 5 right now, so good for
Hey,
him. No one saw it coming.
he
I think we
showed
both-
us up, but we're fine with that.
Yeah, I think at the time we were both like, well, with Hamnick being signed, there's just no way he gets into this lineup. And
With Hamnick being signed, with Rathbone being on the taxi squad, with oh, there was more. There was more in there somewhere. With
Brogan Rafferty maybe showing up.
Who? Oh, this is how we've gotten to this season. This season is both going by so quickly and so fast that I forgot who. Jalen Chatfield. We had Chatfield in the lineup for a while as well,
Sure
and
did.
now he's hurt.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is I completely.
Well, actually, I don't think he's hurt. I think he just sucks.
Didn't he get hurt? Didn't he get hurt and they took him out of the lineup for a bit?
No,
and
he
Hugh Levy.
I mean, his pride probably got hurt when Austin Matthews broke his ankles.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
That is the worst pain of all, after all.
I could have. He got. He got hurt for one game. He was out for one game
correct.
because of an injury.
You
that's
are
right.
correct,
Okay.
but he's not out
I
right now.
completely forgot he's there. I completely forgot he's
same.
there.
Last one. This one's your point. Niels Hoglander, over 20 games played.
Oh,
I picked under.
that was not the point I thought you were giving me. Okay.
No, yeah, that's yours, sir.
Well, good for
You'll
me.
love
Good
to
for
see it.
Good for me. Hell yeah. I
so
believed
it's
it.
fairly tied.
I believed in you from the beginning, Nils. Don't listen to this guy. This guy was a bandwagoner. Don't listen to him.
Man, I guess I was way too optimistic that the top 6 would be fine without him. But here we are.
Yeah.
And, without Hoglander on the ice, the team is like complete dog shit.
See, I thought you were going to give me the points on Holtby and Demko, because I said Demko was going to play more games than Holtby, but it was going to be relatively a close race there, which I've been right on. Oh, somebody doesn't want to admit that he gave Holtby the more
any
games.
Day now, Demko is going to stop a puck with his face, and he's going to be out for a couple games. It's gonna
don't you put that crap on my goalies? How dare you?
That's what we do on this podcast, okay?
That's what you do on this podcast. Don't bring me down with. Don't bring me into the hole with you.
We bring the bad juju, but I just thought those were pretty funny stats. But yeah, other than that was the Canucks in a nutshell. So I think we'll get into some of the news from around the league. Kind of a interesting weekend in terms of news. We had Artemi Panarin drop out of the season because the Russian state is going to try and kill him.
Why is there so much murder on this podcast? This episode, I think we mentioned death like multiple times. Oh God. Oh, I hate those. Those are the no, thank you.
Yes, but for those who don't know, Artemi Panarin has been pretty vocal against the Putin regime, and he was very supportive of Navalny.
Navalny, I think that's his name.
So
he's Putin's main political opponent.
Yes, he's the only real political opponent he's not ever had, but he's had recently.
Yeah.
And because Panarin is like this mega superstar back in Russia for hockey, which is kind of weird, he's very vocal in support of Navalny. Navalny recently was sentenced to 3 years or something in prison for some dumb shit. And then this weird story comes out from like an ex hockey player, like jaded ex hockey player coach,
KHL coach,
like a known drunk and stuff like that, who just made up a bunch of crap. All of his teammates from like the team he was on are just like, yeah, this is all complete bullshit. But now it's like kind of like it's an enemy of the state thing. So he has to, I guess, sort out a bunch of like concerning things, which is kind of terrifying because, as we know, the Russian state has no fucking problem trying to murder people in other countries.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think Navalny was among one of the Putin's political opponents who has been poisoned before.
Yes, they legitimately tried to kill him, like in the United Kingdom or something.
Yeah, they've well, okay. It's one of those, we know absolutely what happened, but of course there's no actual legitimate evidence of that thing. So not that necessarily the Russian government is listening to the CreaseCast, so I don't think, I'm not worried. But like, multiple different people who have been vocal about vocal against Putin have, like, whether they're political people, they're journalists, people of note in Russia have been killed or poisoned, very conveniently, with no trace, and going against a political opponent who was once part of the KGB, like that's
a little risky.
Like, it's a little bit. It's interesting. Like, it's interesting how that all works out for Vladdy. And now it's not so much that Panarin is worried that he's necessarily going to get poisoned or something, because I think, in a way, because he's so recognizable in the States and everything, and in the North America, you kind of can't. Like, it would be too obvious almost.
Well, they don't really give a shit about obvious anymore, but it's just like, for Panarin, who obviously still has family in Russia, that's the big part.
It's
pretty dicey for him. So hopefully nothing blatantly terrible happens from this.
There was the one. I will say there was the one. There was the one reporter, on Twitter, Isabel. I forget her last name, but she's a Washington Post correspondent in Moscow. She used to cover the Capitals. Actually, that was her. She used to be on the beat covering the Caps. And she actually said, because she's living in Moscow doing this, she actually mentioned that it was not actually that big a story in Russia. It was relatively small. Like it was definitely news, but it wasn't like all over the place or anything.
Right.
And she said that, I think that I'm totally paraphrasing here because I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it was one of those things where it's more just a guy. This is probably more a case of a guy who just is a big fan of Putin trying to smear a guy who doesn't like Putin, sort of thing, rather than Vladimir Putin actually trying to put the hit out on Artemi Panarin. Like, it's just kind of a dude being a jerk. It's just a coach being a jerk, more or less.
Maybe trying to sway favors from Putin, because I know Putin has a huge pull when it comes to sports. There was, back in my MMA writing days, there was a story that came out that this really bum kind of fighter went to Russia for an event, and he lost, but he was, I guess, impressive enough, and Putin was in the crowd, and so he was like, I really I obviously through a translator, I was really impressed with your heart and whatever, and we'll take care of you. And this American guy was like, okay. And so he got back to the States, and then a day later, he had a wire transfer into his account for $375,000 US.
What?
Keep in mind, for mid-level, at mixed martial arts, that's unheard of money for a nobody. And so obviously he's some mega billionaire with shares in all these kinds of companies because he's a tyrant.
And because the state owns a lot of things out there.
And so
they own a lot of private companies, particularly I think.
And he's rumored to have shares in basically all of these state-run companies. So he's just reportedly one of the wealthiest people on earth. It's just not reported because Russian media is obviously
a little bit
reasonably
sketch.
A little sketched and worried about reporting on this kind of stuff, because he'll fucking gas you or poison you in the middle of the goddamn streets.
Yeah,
but we don't want to end up as those people, so maybe we'll move on to another topic.
I will. So, and we will say, because this involves essentially, the case is. I don't think, did we mention what exactly it was? It was, because it's the rumor is that he beat up an 18-year-old girl
in
in
a bar
Riga,
or something when he was 18 or something.
and obviously in these cases, it's you take the victim's stuff into account and everything. But the fact is, like in this particular case, this is not the like this girl.
Like
we don't
completely made up. Yeah.
Yeah, like no girl has come out and said, "Oh, this happened to me" or something. This is a guy who heard it from another guy that this thing happened. Like,
yeah.
There's a lot of hey, this doesn't add up. This thing is not true. But
yes.
You hope it's not true. You still want to hold out hope that they actually prove it's not true, because it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
No.
And the Rangers have dealt with a lot already this year. So, you hope you wish the best, at least for for his family and everything right now, because that's it's not good. It's not good. It's all bad.
Yes. Well, moving on to another team that can't afford any worse looks than they've already got. It's the Nashville Predators, who came out, ownership very unhappy with the overall team direction, and a lot of rumors by the insiders saying the team is basically willing to move on from everybody except for Pekka Rinne, Ryan Ellis, and who else?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. This is the Athletic article, if I'm
yeah, I can't remember. I know it's just like it was.
Or I know Elliot Friedman talked about it,
because it was like, of all, like, it wasn't Juuse Saros, it was Rinne that they wanted to not move on from, which is like bizarre.
So I will say, you know what? That's not bizarre to me, because I think he's up there. So here's the thing. I think he's up there in age. Let me take a look at his. Let me try and pull.
He's like 38.
He's like 38. Okay, so I mean, that seems pretty clear to me that they're like, oh, this guy's been a Predator his entire career. We're gonna let him finish with us, and then retire, and then retire his jersey.
To have that, yeah.
And then retire and have his jersey. It's one of those cases where he's been such a loyal foot soldier for them for so many years that it's like, I'm guessing they basically were like, okay, Pekka, we can either trade you to a contender and try and get you a cup, or you can stay with us and finish your career as a Predator. Yeah. And they probably gave him that option. He probably said he'd rather stay. Yeah. And this is his last year on his deal. He's a UFA. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if this is it. This might be it for him.
Like, with the way that the Predators are kind of built right now too, like, there's no way they're contending for a cup at this point in their current arc.
I wanted to ask you, I have a question for you, okay? This is not just about Nashville. This is kind of a little bit overarching on everybody. Without looking right now, two questions. Number one, who's the division leader in the North right now? Who's the North Division leader?
Like in Canada?
Yeah, the Canadian division. Who's the leader right now?
Toronto.
Yes, very good. Toronto is the leader. Now, the second question is, who is leading any of the other three? Do you know?
Fuck, I could not tell you. I genuinely could not tell you. I know that the bottom team in the Pacific Division is Anaheim. That's it.
Yes, that is correct. They are at the bottom in that division.
And I know this because I sorted the teams earlier by win percentage, and the Canucks are currently losing to the Ducks on win or points percentage, which is horrific.
No. Oh yeah,
horrific when you think about it. Like,
horrendous. Only two teams worse than them in win percentage are the Senators and the Red Wings. Yeah. No. Okay. So yeah, and you know what? So this is the thing. Also, I think a lot of Canucks fans listening to this are probably in the same boat as you, where they have no clue what's going on in any of the other divisions, because nobody is really paying attention. So to kind of blow everyone's mind here a little bit, the West Division's going the same, pretty much about how you would expect: Vegas, St. Louis, Colorado, and then in fourth you have the Kings. The LA Kings are in a playoff spot right now.
With a rebuilding team with a bunch of kids and a bunch of like elderly people.
Yes. The East is about where you'd expect. I mean, it's a stacked division. So, I mean, Boston's leading.
Same, like, top conference finalists from last year, basically.
But the main reason I wanted to bring this up is this is where it gets very interesting. The Central Division. Right now, leading the division is the Florida Panthers with 26 points.
Naturally. And they're leading on the backs of Chris Driedger as their starting goaltender.
Right, because Bobrovsky is still bad. Yeah, Bobrovsky is still not having good year with that $10 million cap. And yet The Panthers are leading that division. Carolina's in second. In third place, the Chicago Blackhawks with 24. They have no goaltending. They have a team that I watched one of their games relatively recently, and I'm like, oh, I don't know any of these players except for Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, and that's it.
And like they started their first like 5 games, or they set like a record. It was like the most goals against in like their first 3 games. It was like over 5.5 every single game.
Yep. Jonathan Toews isn't playing because he's dealing with something that we don't fully know about. He's not playing. They're missing someone else, I believe, as well. Someone else
they don't have Brent
semi-important.
Seabrook. I think for a while they were missing Duncan Keith for a bit too, weren't they?
Yeah, and they're just chugging along in a
somehow
damn
in fourth.
In a G-dang playoff spot,
yeah.
because of course they are. And then in fourth, as we all expected to be in fourth, the Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa
Bay.
Dallas is not even in a playoff spot. We're talking about the Predators right now, and they're actually ahead of the Stars, who were in the Cup final last year. I mean, granted, the Stars have only played 13 games. They have played way less games than everybody else, so there is that. They actually have a better winning percentage.
Won a game since posting that thing about how they were going to play the national anthem.
So they're winless since then.
Fuck Dallas. I hope they don't win a single game the rest of the year for that stupid ass opinion and tweet.
That'd be very funny. It's very funny. But but there you go. That's how the rest of the world of the league is shaking out, and we have no clue because the Canadian division has been so nuts and entertaining that you almost don't care what's going on in the other divisions because there's no crossover.
Yeah.
But also just because it's just such a weird. It's what's going on in the States just seems so weird. Like it
seems
nuts.
foreign to the point of like where like as like watchers of the Canadian division, you're like, well, I don't really need to keep up with what's going on in any of the States divisions because we're not going to see them in action until playoff time. And
until
even
the
then,
conference final.
You're not going to see them until the conference finals. And at that point, it doesn't really matter because you have a 1-in-4 shot of actually getting there.
Right. It's 4 reseeded teams. Yeah. At that point,
so it's kind of like, I don't care if Nashville's tanking and they're going to sell off Ryan Johansson's $8 million contract for the next 5 years. Like, who's biting? Who's taking that?
I'll tell you what. Like, I do think this is interesting and something the Canucks should be looking at. Like, the Canucks should absolutely be keeping an eye on what's going on here because the Predators are very much admitting they need to change and do a rebuild here. They're gonna put the block. They're putting everybody on the block for. Sometimes the price is going to be ridiculous, but they're still gonna hear it out, right?
Yeah.
If I'm the Canucks, you keep as close an eye on this as possible. I think a guy who would be worth one guy, he's injured right now, but worth keeping a close eye on right now is maybe like Matthias Ekholm. He's 30, but he's only got 2 more years left on a relatively low cost, like $3.75 million defenseman for 2 years, and by next season it'll be one. It'll be only 1 season. Maybe you can make something work there. Like Ekholm might be an interesting person to look at. Dante Fabro apparently is not necessarily even out of the equation here in terms of acquisition.
It was Yossi, Ellis, and Rene who were basically the untouchables, which is like fair. That's who you would build your defense around is Ellis and Yossi right now because they're on those long-term deals.
They're on those long-term deals. They're lifelong Predators. You're not getting rid of them.
Yeah. But like the forward groups, like that's like if you're Detroit, for example, and you have the most cap space in the league right now, like you're looking at Philip Forsberg or like Victor Arvidsson, and you're thinking like, how can we flip these guys with some salary retained and basically like set ourselves up for the following run or next couple of years.
Yeah. I think you'd be surprised at what you can find there. Like I think the Predators are doing the really smart thing, and actually we could tie this back into the Canucks in itself. They're selling early. Like they're not waiting till the trade deadline when everything's going to get messy. Shout out Thomas Drance had a great article on the Canucks about why, and talking about recently why they should not be waiting. Absolutely, under no circumstances should you wait for the trade deadline to make a decision. You should be looking at making moves and choices and decisions now, while before the market gets oversaturated. And the Predators are doing that right now. They've got a lot of like the thing with the Predators that's different from the Canucks is that they have a lot of guys with value. With like that very easily a team could look at them and say, "Oh, this would help our team." Like adding this player would absolutely make our team better. They have a lot of guys that on that, even like the guys who are making a little bit more money than they should be, have decent enough value that you could make something work and not feel like you're getting completely ripped off.
Yeah, they're good enough players to the point where like you're okay with like maybe kicking in a bit to get them to retain a small sum because at the end of the day they're still good players on those deals. They aren't, the Canucks contracts where you have Tyler Myers 3 years at $6 million or Jay Beagle playing 6 minutes a night on a $4 million deal. Or Antoine Roussel with his $3 million ticket. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
You're getting, probably a middle six contributor at like a retained amount. It's worth looking into. But like, it makes it a little difficult for the Canucks if a team like the Predators are saying, hey, all of our best players are available. Not a single one of them has a no movement clause or a no trade clause, so they are yours basically until they hit like free agency.
Wow, they've done that's an incredible job in terms of cap management, even as bad as some of these contracts are.
I was gonna say this is why David Poile gets a lot of heat because he hasn't won anything as a GM despite being in the league for like 30 something years, and he opts instead of signing guys to like no movement clauses, no trade clauses, like the problems that everyone complains about with Jim Benning. He instead gives people probably a bit too much on the term. And look at the tourist deal. Like they bought it out 2 seasons after signing it, and now they have him against their cap $2 million until like 29 or something like that. Like
the Predators make me sad because you know what? I really liked the Predators. Like when they were going on their run as a group, like that cup run, I was really rooting for them to win. Like I really wanted them to beat Pittsburgh, not because I don't like the Penguins, just because I really wanted to see a new champion, a new market, especially a fun one. Like like Nashville is on my like top of my list of places I want to go see a hockey game at some point because it looks like a fantastic place to see a game, and it looks like that fan base is really shown that hey, unconventional markets for hockey can absolutely work and do well and absolutely kick ass and give the original six and like the older groups a run for their money a little bit. Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of pieces here from that team that really were that are a big part of that. They came so close, never got back, but never came that close again. They never got. They just couldn't get it. They just couldn't find that magic again.
The following year, and then they couldn't really retool or find a combination that really worked. Yeah. And that's why you don't fight for a single run in the playoffs. Like you try to build a team that can have prolonged success in the playoffs. And that's what, real diehard Canucks fans are asking for. They're not wanting the team to suck so that they can be, just for the sake of being bad. They want them to have an actual plan that results in a dynasty that can actually, have prolonged success in the playoffs, like something that they haven't seen in fucking a decade. Yeah. And man, like you look at the Predators, they were so close, man. I was
so close.
So hurt to see them lose in that game. I had to take a walk because I was so mad.
Man. Oh, buddy.
But yeah, like that's just like the way the league works, man. Like you have your shot, and if you can't find a way to make it work or to prolong that success, like then you get in situations like the Preds where they keep on re-signing these guys they think are going to be key centermen for their future, and it never works.
Yeah,
They're
sometimes
buying out Kyle Turris 2 years after signing him to a 7-year, $49 million contract. Like,
yeah,
it's brutal.
yeah.
But
And
speaking of,
we give a lot. I just quickly before we
yeah,
close off
for
on
sure.
this one, like I will say, we like recently we've seen some teams like the Sharks obviously have fallen into the basement late. The Ducks as well, the Kings for sure. Like the California teams all did that. You look at Chicago, Detroit's obviously bad now, but hey, those guys had groups that were able to prop that playoff door open for a long time.
Yeah.
For a very long time. And not even just in we're going for our 2 games of playoff revenue and then getting out.
No.
Like, those teams quite regularly were teams that people could be like, yeah, I could see this team winning the cup. The Sharks especially were a very good example of a team that went, what was it like? I think like something along the lines of like nearly 22 years where they missed the playoffs like once. They missed the playoffs once in like 20 something years.
Yeah,
and then
it was like one time. That's all it was. It was a disgusting run.
Yeah, they missed the playoffs, and then immediately the year after they went all the way to the cup final. Like that's the Shark. That was the Sharks. I have definitely had my issues with the way the Sharks have ran their system and the way that what they've done to their system, but you can't fault the fact that they were able to just hold that door open, that cup door window open for as long as humanly possible.
Yeah.
The Canucks and the Predators were a team that tried. They weren't able to hold it for as long. And the Canucks need to look at both of these teams and go, which one do you want to be?
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of like teams like keeping those windows open, like I almost feel like Canucks fans like forget, like everyone kind of rags on like the Kings too for like the way that their season's gone. They were competitive with Vegas in their 2017-18 run, like that first year that
They get swept.
They got swept, but I think people forget that Jonathan Quick put on like a sub 1.5 goals against average, and like it was like a disgusting like 950 save percentage. It was basically a battle between him and Marc-Andre Fleury, and Marc-Andre Fleury won out, but they were by no stretch like blown out in the sweep somehow. Like they were like incredibly close games. I remember that series being just like an unbelievable battle of goaltending.
Yeah.
And that just like proves like you're building a team for long-term success, and they managed to get a goalie like Jonathan Quick to carry them from like the 2010s all the way to nearly 8 years later when they were in the middle or like at the very forefront of their rebuild starting. And just 2 seasons after that, they have the most disgustingly stacked prospect cupboard of any team right now. It is gross.
And they're already coming in and paying off. Like
Yeah,
that, like, again, we
unreal.
mentioned, they're in a damn playoff spot right now. I think they've won 5 in a row or something nuts.
Yeah.
Like, could you possibly, like, I would never have seen that coming, especially after watching their first 2 games against Minnesota, where Kirill Kaprizov just absolutely dominated them for 2 straight games. I was like, well, they're going to be bottom of the pack again, but that's okay. They're not really trying to win now anyway.
Yeah.
Here they are, all of a sudden, just no big deal in the middle of actually actually battling with the young guys in their lineup, absolutely paying off and making them better. Like Arthur Kaliev, I think, was one who's been pretty big for them of late.
Yeah, Kaliev came in. He had a goal in his first game. Jared Anderson Dolan, after a season in the AHL, came in and he's gotten 2 goals, 5 assists or something like that. Like they're getting production from their kids. Props to the scouting staff. And I
think Tyler Madden's supposed to show up at some
point. For Canucks fans' sakes, like hopefully Tyler Madden doesn't make his NHL debut. And for Canucks' sakes as well, hopefully the Kings don't rebuild and reopen their playoff contention window before the Canucks even started theirs.
I remember like last year, I absolutely made fun of the fact that the Canucks had already rebuilt faster than the Oilers, which I still maintain is correct. That was not a wrong take. They were absolutely better than the Oilers last year in a lot shorter a time span than it took the Oilers to get better, even with Connor McDavid. But that's gonna look real damning if the Kings walk in here after missing the playoffs, 2 years in a row?
Yeah.
That's
Pretty
it.
bad.
And now they're already decent again. And like sustainable, but like decent in the sense of sustainable, where there's a sustainability aspect there. There isn't that same can't be said for the Sabres, for the Buffalo Sabres, who we were about to talk about.
Jeff Skinner, apparently on the outs with Coach Ralph Kruger, getting scratched as a $9 million ticket. Apparently, like to fans in Buffalo, like it's a coaching issue, and they actually think that Skinner's played well enough to deserve more ice time, and is kind of getting the raw deal here.
Which is fascinating because I thought Ralph Kruger was a really good coach. Like he was a coach I wanted the Canucks to pick up instead of, not instead of, but back after Willie Desjardins had been let go, I was pulling for Ralph Kruger, but I think he was doing something else at the time, like something in Europe. So they got Travis
That's a tough deal. That's a really tough deal to see. Like, man, for all the things that Canucks fans complain about, like Louis Eriksson sitting in the press box with $6 million, whatever. He's 34 years old. He isn't 27, 28-year-old Jeff Skinner on $9 million in the press box. That's for a team that's, like, as we've said like many times already, a team that's suffered as much as they have. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Taxi squad. If a guy gets sent in a taxi squad, he's technically on the minor. He technically, and for all intents and purposes, cap wise, he's in the minors, right? Like
his cap is treated as if it's in the minors.
Yeah, and
he only gets like $1 million of relief or something off his $9 million hit.
Yeah. I was gonna say the thing that I find so funny is that his salary in the minors, and I think this is unusual. I feel like this is unusual. His salary in the minors, if he goes down, goes up to $10 million.
Yeah, that's fair. I'd want to pay a raise.
It's a $9 million cap. Is that normal? Am I nuts? Is that?
No, I've seen that in some of the other deals too. It's like, I'm sure it has something to do with signing bonuses or like for taxation reasons, but like
it must be, because I'm like, wait, what? He makes an extra $1 million if you send him down, so you're screwed either way. Because I mean, not like let's be honest. If they tried to put him on the taxi squad, no one's claiming him this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they don't have to worry about that
contract.
But with that contract, they don't have to worry. But oh my God, Buffalo. We don't need to spend too much time on it because we already did last week.
It's just a good segue into our next segment. This is basically our pain section. And so one of the other pieces of pain we wanted to talk about was the 1-year anniversary of the Toronto Maple Leafs losing to a Zamboni driver.
You call that pain. I call that a great day. I had so much fun. Actually, that's not true.
Fan bases.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I lied.
If you're a
that's
Leafs
not.
Fan, wouldn't you think like the Ayres story is just like so cool and so funny? Like, who cares if you lost?
Oh yeah, I love the Steve Dangle video from that game is so funny. Like he's just he's so he's so mad and it's so funny. It's one of my it's a great video. But
I believe you.
I'll say that I remember the David Ayres game. Yes, I've never played in the National Hockey League. Shocker, I know. But as a goalie, I was having an anxiety attack on David Ayres' behalf the second he went in net. I was literally like on the edge of my seat, like heart racing, like, oh my God. Like I'm like, I was panicking. I'm like, is this what my mom is like when she watches me play? Or like any like goalie parent? Is this what it's like? Because I was sitting there just having a huge anxiety attack, like, oh my God, they're gonna light this poor guy up. This is and it's gonna be so embarrassing. Like I was freaking out on his behalf, and then no big deal, he wins the damn game because the Leafs and the Hurricanes, for that matter, played a really good defensive game. They were actually really, really good. That was a great moment. I enjoyed that game thoroughly. Like that by the end, it was so fun.
I remember texting my dad and being like, he lives out in Alberta, and I was like, man, are you watching this? And he was just like, it's so good to see them lose. And man, yeah, super rad. Super fun story. If you're a Leafs fan listening to this, it's probably not a fun story, but we fucking loved it. It was hysterical. As a pro goalie, pro Leaf failure podcast.
Oh yeah. It was so good. It was so good. Such a good moment.
Yes.
And
well,
I guess that brings us into the question that the most pressing question of all, which is
asking for.
Yes, this is the question you've all been waiting for this entire podcast. Yeah. Cody, who is going to play David Ayres in the Disney movie that's rumored to be coming out about him?
Dennis Quaid.
What? Dennis Quaid? Okay. Yeah. Well, explain your reasoning here. I'm fascinated.
If you've seen a picture of like David Ayres, like he's kind of like a unit. Like he's a big boy. And like Dennis Quaid strikes me as the type that could play like an older sports figure. He already did it once before in Disney's The Rookie, so they already have his number. So it would kind of make sense that he does like a run it back kind of thing and plays a goalie who goes from Zamboni driver to star in a game. It would be a terrible movie though. Like all you have to do is watch the YouTube highlights of like him getting in the game, Rod Brindamer shaking his head going, and then him making a bunch of saves.
Yeah.
You can't make a movie out of it though.
So here's what I'm thinking. It's going to be one of those, like, it's inspired by a true story movies. Like, it's not going to be, like, I don't think the character in this movie is going to be named David Ayres. I think it's going to be some completely different name. But it's going to be like one of those, they paid him for the story. It's going to be, yes, based on his story, but it'll be different. Like, it'll be something more like, emergency goalie takes team to a championship sort of thing. It'll be much more much more of a movie story, right? So I have 4 options here. I came prepared for this with 4 options, okay? So if it's a more dramatic movie, I'm thinking Ben Affleck. Cause this like you said, sports guy, this screams a movie that Ben Affleck would want.
Like
this
he'd overact in to try and get his acting Oscar.
Yes, he would go nuts with it, and also provided that he could change the team that he plays for from the Hurricanes to the Bruins. That would be very important for him.
No one would ever watch it.
People would watch it. No
one would ever watch a feel-good movie about the Bruins.
Maybe not in Vancouver. It'd make like $2 in Vancouver. Like
unless the movie ends with Ben Affleck like letting in like the game-winning goal, and it's about his failure as a player.
I think it would
have a movie.
I think it'd be like them winning like Game 7 over the Leafs. It would be like something like that, which maybe that trumps it for some people. Trumps the Bruins' hatred for some people in this market. Maybe, right?
Yes, sir, maybe.
But I think that's where they would go with if it was dramatic. If it's more comedic, and you mentioned like bigger guy, like comedic, John C. Reilly from Step Brothers.
Okay.
I think he's perfect. I think he'd be perfect.
40 chess brain, like galaxy brain thought. John C. Reilly plays the David Ayres character, but as that professor guy in all the GIFs. I can't remember his name, but he's got like the glasses, and he's just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah, I think that could be. I think he has a good shot at getting this. This seems like this would if it's a little bit more on the funny side.
Dr. Steve Brule. Okay, that's what it is.
Steve Brule. Yeah, that's my. Those are my 2 main picks. So those are my 2 main picks, and then I have 2 just total wild cards. If Disney decides to do just go completely nuts with it and be Disney about it. Just for their acting chops, and kind of like, I guess, meme-ability alone. Adam Driver, and Timothy Chalamet.
Buddy, I had a
completely don't fit the roles, but
I had a tweet earlier this year, or like honestly like a week ago, and like I had been watching a bunch of Timothy Chalamet videos on like Jimmy Fallon,
one of the late night
Jimmys, one of the Jimmys that are awful because they both suck, and he's the biggest nerd drama kid loser. He's so awkward and gangly and weird that like I have so much respect for him as an actor after having seen what he's like in real life, because he manages to embody every role so perfectly well that I buy him as a king. I buy him as this like gay student in Italy on a tour with his father. I buy him in every single role he's in for some reason.
And you'd buy him
in real life, and it just makes no sense that this is the same person. So I could believe he could be a 6'3" goaltender who's 40 years old, because I think he could do it. He's that good of an actor.
Yes. Adam Driver, for the exact same reasons, only I would say a little bit better, because Adam Driver's a fantastic actor.
Yes,
like, he's
true.
really good. I don't know if you've ever seen any of like his SNL episodes. They're good.
He's very funny.
He's very funny, and he's really good at playing like a variety of different roles. Like for the same reason. Like, he's the best part of that last Star Wars trilogy. Him as Kylo Ren, fantastic character. Kylo Ren they did a great job with Kylo.
Yeah, if you get a chance, check out a movie called Logan Lucky with him in it. He's fucking awesome in that. Daniel Craig's in it too, and he plays like a southern jailbird. It's super rad. But
I love.
We won't get into the movies talks because we could go on this for hours, and it's already 11:30, and I have to be up in 5 hours.
So do I. Cheers.
Oh my god, he crushes the mic, the brew again. He's insane, folks.
It's over. It's done.
As always, don't forget to follow the YouTube channel, rate and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast streaming service. Leave us reviews. We appreciate them more than anything. If you like what you heard in tonight's episode, make sure to check out our Patreon, where we post exclusive content at the $1 tier and bonus podcasts at the $5 tier. Lachlan, after this brilliant post-gamer, where can the fine folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lach and the Crease, and you can find my writing work over at lachandthecrease.com, which I recently just had to kind of rebuild from scratch. Oops. I had to rebuild it with a new layout and everything. It looks really nice and a little bit more professional. You should go check it out. I do the North Division Power Rankings every single Sunday and write the occasional in-depth article and or feature or opinion sometimes. I should do that more. Cody, where can they find you?
The fine folk can find me at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and at thecometsharvest.com. I recently posted a deep dive into the early game stats of AHL prospects for the Vancouver Canucks. Pretty good deep dive. Got to post a bunch of charts and stuff that I'd been working on since the off season, and pretty happy with that one. So check it out. As always, folks, we appreciate you guys listening. Hope you enjoyed this one, even if you really didn't enjoy the game against the Oilers. We will see you guys in our next episode that should be released Saturday. I won't be on it because I'll be on the Comets beat, but we're going to try and get a guest in store for you. If not, you'll be stuck with my lovely co-host here, Lachlan. Till then, folks, we will catch you guys later. Bye.